Welcome to the second podcast of A Life to Roar. And our old Roaring Like Lions name has now changed to Life to Roar to go with the podcast that we have going on with Anchor FM and Spotify. I'm your host, L.S. Kirkpatrick, and this podcast is always about adding value into you, offering guidance in your writing, your entrepreneurship, and your life. So welcome to you, my new listeners, and to my dedicated listeners who have joined this audience from Roaring Like Lions Live. So you're listening to Live to Roar audio podcast, Tuesdays at 6:30 Pacific, 7:30 Mountains, 8:30 Central, and 9:30 Eastern, or GMT -6. And today, our guest speaker is Jon Jimmerson. So give a little bit of introduction. Jon came from Northern California, where he produced music, recorded, taught, and performed at a high level. And you're now in Franklin, Tennessee, is that?
Yeah, right near Nashville. It's a suburb of Nashville.
Okay, all right. He's a very versatile player, plays any kind of music that is required, which includes rock, indie, folk, worship, CCM. What's CCM?
Contemporary Christian.
Performing for any genre. He has over 17 years experience in the music business and a bachelor's degree in music. And I could go on, but I'll include the link for you. For those listening, it's www.guitaristpedalsteelplayernashville.com. Wow, that's a mouthful for me.
Yeah.
So I have a first question for you. Who is your photographer? Because those photos of you on your website are just amazing.
Oh, thank you. Some of them are just done right, from your everyday phone, just a regular iPhone. But the professional ones, which you could probably see a difference on, is from Brianna Sandbacken. She's out of Folsom, California. She's a really good friend of my wife, Selby's, and she's a professional photographer. Awesome.
Nice.
It's really
nice.
great. Yeah.
Oh, for all the ladies out there, they're going to be disappointed to know that you're married. But I know you've got a beautiful, wonderful wife, and you have 3 children?
Four
children.
Well, 3 and a newborn. Well, I guess she's a toddler now, but yeah. 7 months old.
Wow, that's amazing.
Crazy. Yeah, time flies by. It's insane.
It does.
Doesn't it fly by? I remember when
Yes.
I'd come and play at your house with your son Jon all the time. I was over there all the time,
Me too.
hanging out. Man, those were the days.
Yeah.
Sitting and playing Hexen at the on the computer and watching Star Wars over and over and over, the same video over and over again. I loved it. Oh, playing we used to play what's that old game? Dungeons and Dragons. We used to play Dungeons and Dragons like crazy. I just talked to Jon not too long ago too.
Oh, did you? Good.
Yeah.
I finally got to talk to him yesterday. Hadn't talked to him for a while.
Nice. He sounds really busy.
Oh, yeah, he is. He's doing good. I'm glad. But let's get back to you. So it says you came from Northern California, but obviously that's not where you were born and raised.
Well, I was born in San Jose, California, but my parents moved when I think I was 3. So I was born in San Jose, but then they moved to Arizona, and then to Texas, and then to New Mexico, to Oregon for a really short time, back to New Mexico.
Wow, that's amazing. I just can't believe you boys are so grown up. You've got your own families now. I wanted to ask you, do you think that you and your brother would be doing what you are now when you were younger?
What age are we talking about?
About maybe 7th, 8th grade, before high school, right about
before
then.
So middle school-ish, something like that. I always wanted to be a sports coach. I always wanted to be a basketball coach. And what else? That was about it. That's kind of the only thing that was on my mind back then.
So how did you music then, if you were looking at basketball coaching?
So I'm I've always been the kind of guy that has put his eggs in one basket. I try not to do that anymore, but I used to be. And so everything to me was sports. It was basketball, track, and soccer. And that was everything to me, as you probably remember. um, and that failed miserably when I couldn't even make the varsity team my sophomore year at Rio Rancho High when we were in school. And so my whole world shattered at that point, and I had nothing as far as like something that, because that was everything to me. Um, Sports and girls, that was it. And when that completely failed, I had nothing else to do with my time, and I took a guitar class at the high school I was going to. Kind of started to fill up my time with that, and then just got really obsessed with music. And, you know, so it's been awesome. My dad was a worship leader growing up in churches and stuff. I don't do that anymore, but he was in that world, so I got exposed to a lot of music growing up. And then my uncle used to play at a lot of bars and clubs and stuff in Georgia, and we'd see him play at more family friendly events and stuff. And he owned a music store in Georgia as well. So I grew up with a fair amount of music. My mom um, kind of dabbled in Broadway a little bit. She studied acting in New York and then did a little off Broadway stuff too. So music was all over the household, and it was always very therapeutic and wonderful to listen to. I was really into musicals growing up too. So basically, I had to fail at a couple of things before I took on music.
Well, and that's true. You know, any entrepreneur, anybody starting out writing books, whatever you decide to do, you're going to fail. Failure's a part of life. Failure's not a bad thing. It just changes our direction, gives us perspective, lets us that we can conquer that. Okay, this is one way that didn't work, so let's try a different way.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
that real famous quote by Thomas Edison, I found 10,000 ways that didn't work until I finally found the one that did. um, Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup of the Soul, over 100 rejections. And he just kept going until he finally got the one that said yes.
Oh
So, you
geez.
know,
Yeah.
failure is just a part of life, and it's not bad. You know, it's when I first started working, I got fired from my first real job, and I was devastated. Nobody prepared me for getting fired. What do you
Yeah.
do with that? You know, but it's really no big deal. It just opens up more opportunities for you that you wouldn't have had otherwise. So, no, that's a good thing. So, I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about your youngest brother. Um, I was just looking up online that 15% of the world has some kind of, it's not a mental handicap or disability. Their brains are just wired differently. They
Yeah.
have some kind of, we'll call it a mental disability. And according to WHO, over 970 million people in the world have this. So,
Hmm.
you know, that's a significant amount. So, what was it like for you? And we don't have, what was it like for you to grow up with a sibling that looked at the world differently than the rest of the world looks at things?
It's okay. Growing up, it was easy as a brother. I can't. I think it's a lot harder if your older sibling has special needs and you're the younger one. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's probably the truth. I would say as an older brother who has a younger brother with significant special needs. A little bit of background: nobody really knows what Peter has, but he's been diagnosed with a lot of stuff, a shit ton of stuff. So it's anything from geez, autism to mental retardation, and the worst one is the mental illness. So the mental illness is harder than all those things combined. If you could, yeah, that's the hardest. The mental illness is really what makes it difficult. The other stuff is somewhat manageable, to be honest with you.
Sorry,
But growing up, huh?
can you expand on that a little bit? Like you're saying
Yeah.
mental illness is harder. So what's the
Mhm.
difference?
So with autism, and there's varying degrees of autism, and I am not a professional. I'm just a guy that grew up in a home with autistic brother, and then I've taught a lot of special needs kids music, but I am not a professional outside of the brother and music realm. But from what I've experienced, autism, you can adapt your way of life to that person and kind of customize it to where you can coexist a little better once you figure it out. Now, figuring it out is extremely difficult and hard. And when I say that it could take a long time, I mean years and years to figure that out. But there is hope, I think, with autism and that. And there's so many varying degrees. From high functioning to it just, but that's a blanket statement I'm giving. Generally speaking, I've noticed with parents, they can find a way to adapt. I'm not going to speak into Down syndrome and other things, but it seems like there are some workarounds. With mental illness, there pretty much is a never ending. It just, it's just horrible. And there's not a lot of adapting people can do to adjust to that life. There are medications you can try. There are different varying degrees. I don't know what everybody's viewpoints is on marijuana and things like that, but there's all different kinds of things you can try, but no guarantees. And it's just hard. I just don't. That part is the hardest. When Peter had issues with going into public settings because of his autism, you can adjust to that. When he'd have issues with a certain environment because he was scared of whatever, you can adjust to that. But when he's freaking out mentally and he's losing it, trying to adjust to that it's really hard, especially with the self-injury stuff. That's way more difficult. So yeah, I don't want to elaborate too much. And again, I want to say, after I said all that, I am not a professional. Okay, that's right. A difference between me and somebody who really has studied it. I'm just talking from only personal experience.
Right, and that's all we're looking at here. What it was for you, because it'll be different for every family, be different for every person, because everybody's so individual, which makes us all so wonderfully creative and wonderful. So what kind of things are you doing in Tennessee? You're teaching. I love your website. There's so much available there. Are you in a band still?
I play in a lot of different groups, and I do recording sessions. So in Nashville, there are groups that can afford players full time. If they have six-figure salaries for each of the players, that actually happens here. But most touring groups, all my tours are part-time, and together they kind of add up that way. And that's a pretty typical scenario for most musicians here, where you're jumping in between bands, going from band to band, playing as a musician for hire. And then I do a fair amount of session work, which is recording. So in Nashville, people will come and pay for demos, and they'll pay for their final CDs, or they'll want to record their songs. In many cases, they don't even write their own songs. The songs are written by songwriters here, and they're recorded by session musicians. And sometimes all the artist does is sing on the song. They didn't write it. They may have had a part in writing it. There's a separate band that records, because recording is a separate skill set to playing live. Those are two different things. Most of your albums you've listened to have session players on them that did not record with the band, or that don't play live with the band. They just recorded with the band.
That's why you'll have music different on CDs than you will if you go to a live concert.
Oh, totally. Well, you hear of Eric Clapton playing with the Beatles, on some of those tunes, and that happened for everybody from the Rolling Stones to Led Zeppelin to whoever. I mean, they record and collaborate, and that's how you get these amazing songs. It's lots of collaboration. So in the recording performance world, I do that. I do teach, not as much anymore. I teach a handful of music classes. the web page seems like it's catered mostly to that, just because those are the people that would find you online. The playing and the session work and the performance is mostly a word of mouth culture. People aren't finding you online unless it's like an Instagram, Facebook thing, and even then it's not as much. It's mostly word of mouth. And then I'm going to be doing, ironically, a special needs band program nationwide here in a couple of years. I'm fixing to ramp that up, and it'll take a long time to get that off the ground, but there's a lot of ideas I have for that and stuff. So that, as before you called, that was what I was working on.
Juggle all of these, because they don't sound like you have a regular schedule like 9 to 5 and this is what I do at this time. So how do you juggle all of that with family life, plus also getting your self-care time for you, just to get out of your head and take a break from everything?
Oh, that's such a great question. I don't need, my time is work. I love working. I'm one of those guys that the concept of retirement and having nothing to do in a day sounds like torture to me. We went on vacation to Destin this last week, to the beach with the family. And as much as I love being on vacation at the beach, it's so hard to turn off work for me, because I do love it. I don't need to turn it on. It's always on. So it's not I'll probably get more tired if I sleep in and don't do anything during the day. It's just, I've got this rat or mouse, whatever we want to call it, turning the wheel constantly, and it never stops running. And if you try to make it stop running, it'll like bite you or something. It won't be happy. That little mouse needs to keep running, or things are going to fall apart. So
A little bit left out because you're so dedicated to your music, or do you make specific time for family?
It's just circumstantial. It depends on the day. We don't have like set times. Like, my hours are I work a lot in the morning and a lot in the evening at night. So the middle of the day would be when we get some family time. After we hang up, I'm going to go to the store with my wife, and then we're all going to go to the gym together and go to the pool and things like that. So we'll spend, but then when I get home, I'll probably work till the end of the day. On that note, we're one income. We do own a hair salon in California still, so my wife had a part in that, but I'm sole provider. So it's kind of she is very supportive of what I do, and it's almost like if I'm hanging out doing nothing all day for too long, she'll look at me and be like, "What's wrong with you? Why are you?" That doesn't happen often, but that's part of what she's used to, and she loves it, to be honest with you. She loves having me working. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Maybe
awesome.
She loves having me gone more than anything. Is that a good
sign?
No.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I am not a professional therapist here.
Yep.
Talk to your brother, no, and his wife. Which,
yeah, I have the most supportive wife in the world.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. I get to speak with Daniel on Wednesday. Hopefully I get to speak with Gabby too. That'll be really
nice.
good. Listen to their first 2 podcasts they've got, and so it's looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, what is it? The 2 I can't remember what the podcast is called, but it's 2 not shrooms. 2 what's the therapist nickname? What's it called?
Let's see. Can you hear me? Is it?
Oh yeah, you pause there for a minute.
The 2 shrinks.
Shrinks. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of fun. Yeah. So you've got your big plan of doing in a couple of years of doing will it be like a benefit for special needs?
Special needs bands, so it's extremely complicated, which will take a while to even figure out how to make it work. But I have a dream to put a bunch of special needs kids in a room together and play music in a band.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what are you doing now besides your website? Can people find you somewhere in Franklin or Nashville?
You can go on my webpage, or you can find me on Facebook, Jon Jimmerson Music, Instagram, Jon Jimmerson Music, to my knowledge. There's that too. And yeah, everybody does social media these days. I have a LinkedIn as well.
Okay.
I never look at it, but it's there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like my Twitter. It's there, but I don't do much with it. Well,
Awesome.
good. Well, good. So let's see, what else are you doing? What are you doing right now? You're teaching a little bit, but what do you do? What's the typical?
Yeah, well, the weeks never look the same. There is no routine. If you're in music full time, you never have the same schedule. But like, let's see. So this week I will be teaching a class tonight. I'm doing webpage entrepreneur stuff today. I'll teach 3 classes tonight, actually. I've got mostly recording sessions tomorrow. Mostly do that. Classes on Wednesday and Thursday. I leave for tour Thursday night, red eye to Las Vegas. I'll be on tour from Thursday to Sunday night, flying back Monday. So that's kind of what that looks like a little bit. Oh, sorry, Linda, you paused there for a minute again.
What's the tour that you're going on?
So I'm playing with Neon Union. We're opening up for Jimmy Allen for that one.
Oh,
It's the first country black and white duo in history.
Oh.
They played at the Grand Ole Opry last night. Wish I could play, but they used the house band, which is I would like to think I'm a good musician, but I'm not. You know, it's the Grand Ole Opry band. They're pretty amazing. So yeah, awesome.
They are. One day.
Maybe. It'd be
That'll
cool.
be great. You make it to the Grand Ole Opry, I'll come and see you. Definitely.
Yeah, but when that band is there, it's hard. Not going to pass up playing with those guys. They've got Tommy White plays pedal steel for them. He's top 3 pedal steel players in the world right now, next to Paul Franklin. And yeah, the caliber of players they have is insane.
So what's your favorite instrument? Do you have a favorite, or do you just like playing them all?
I like playing them all. I play mostly guitar, dobro, and pedal steel. Those are the 3 I really focus on a lot. I do play keys, banjo, mandolin, sing some backgrounds, I create beats, a couple other instruments. I'm a huge fan of the cello. I don't play the cello. I do produce some cello and string type sounds orchestra using MIDI instrumentation. So you can download programs like Spitfire and Native Instruments and things like that and use your MIDI keyboard to command certain sounds that are actual reproductions of actual players in the studio, but you're playing keys and the velocity sensitive and everything, so you can make it sound pretty close. So when it comes to recording, it's insane what you can do with recording these days. With just a headset on and a laptop, it's ridiculous how much you can do.
Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on today. It's so good and we got to do this more often.
Yeah, it was good to see you again. A lot of history.
Yeah, but keep us posted on what you're doing. That all sounds really exciting. And so if people want to follow you, they just need to go to your website or find you on Facebook or one of the other social medias. And we'll go from there. So I just really want to thank you. Be sure everybody look at the description so you can get to the links to Jonathan's website and support him. And so I would like to say thank you for listening to A Life to Roar. I'm your podcast host, Ellis Kirkpatrick. And you can find my books on Amazon.com. Bella, we have our second episode out. It's on Amazon. And if you want to write me, join me in writing the book, yes, you, the reader, get to choose where and how the story goes on Kindle Vella Library by Amazon, titled Let's Write a Story Together. You can also connect with me via my two websites, writers2readers.com. That's writers, WRITERS, the number 2, readers, READERS.com, or www.lskirkpatrick.com. That's the letter L and the letter S, and then kirkpatrick.com. Or you can find me on YouTube and on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Linktree. Thank you for being uniquely you and for joining us today on Alive to Roar every Tuesday at 7:30 Mountain. And be authentic. And thank you, Jonathan, again. I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me, Linda. Let's catch up sometime.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.